views and opinions expressed by the host and participants are their own and do not reflect the view of the companies they work for.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mario, and I'm your host, Pietro Faccio. Still the same, I know you know it, and that's why I'm thinking about removing this intro. Everybody does it. I thought it was cool to do it, but I think I want to remove it, and I want to leave you entirely with my guests. Now, why am I here? I'm here just to apologize. Apologize because the audio quality of this video is a little bit lower than normal because we were recording from Reboot at the Sheraton restaurant. The staff of the restaurant were so great in organizing our space for us there for recording, but other people came in and started talking loudly just behind us. I don't know if you didn't notice we were recording, but it doesn't matter. Plus, there were people, some of the waiters that were talking and also trying to reorganize the tables. So there was a lot of background noise. I had to use Magic Dust, which is a software to remove the background noise. So in the end, the overall quality was lower. Anyway, please enjoy Kate Edwards and enjoy it. Welcome to the 8th episode of My Name is Mario. This time I have this incredible lady next to me. I know we need no introduction because you all know Kate Edwards, of course. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, as you can see, also we are the Reboot. So we are at Reboot in the beautiful surrounding of Reboot. Yesterday was a beautiful day. Today it's not that great. It's raining outside. But we found out this nice place to have this conversation. And like with every single other person that I interview, I have prepared something for, with AI, talking about you based on your LinkedIn profile, everything that I found on the internet, a few things that you told me also like about your personal life, and first and foremost, an incredibly busy person, busy, but as equally as nice.
I try to be.
You are, and I heard great stories. Fun fact: in the past 2 days here in Dubrovnik, I was having meetings or just hanging around and talking to people and saying, I'm going to record with Kate Edwards. Oh my God, she's amazing. Everyone has the same. Oh, she's interesting. She has great stories. People have all sorts of great stories about you.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, you shouldn't appreciate it. You should appreciate yourself because you are such an amazing person. So let's start with what the AI has built for us.
Okay.
Yeah?
All right.
Let's see, max volume, and 3, 2, 1, let's go.
Kate Edwards, an award-winning advocate recognized on the Forbes Women 50 over 50 list for her transformative impact on the gaming industry and beyond. With a career spanning more than 2 decades, Kate has firmly established herself as a leading geographer, speaker, advisor, mentor, and culturalization innovator. Kate is the CEO and principal consultant at Geography, where she leverages her extensive expertise to guide companies through the cultural and geographic variables that affect their products in the global marketplace. She is also the CXO and co-founder of SetJetters, bringing her passion for locations and storytelling to the innovative travel app inspired by film and television sites. Previously, Kate served as the executive director of the Global Game Jam and the International Game Developers Association, IGDA, where she championed game developers and promoted the craft of game development worldwide. Under her leadership, these organizations flourished, broadening their impact and outreach within the global community. Kate's journey in technology began in her youth. Inspired by the space race and the historic moon landing she watched in 1969. This early fascination with technology evolved into a lifelong passion for video games, marked by her first encounter with Pong, a moment she describes as life-changing. Her deep love for science fiction and fantasy was nurtured by classics like the original Star Trek, Twilight Zone, and Star Wars, which she experienced firsthand at the age of 12. Travel has always been a significant part of Kate's life, inspired by countless family road trips that instilled in her a love of exploration, discovering new cultures, meeting diverse peoples, and visiting unknown places. This passion for exploration is reflected in both her professional and personal life, where she also enjoys cosplay with her daughter, a professional costume designer. In her leisure time, Kate is an avid reader, balancing fiction and nonfiction, and an enthusiastic gamer when her schedule allows. A lover of music, she is particularly fond of movie scores and classical music, often reliving the 80s with hits from U2, The Police, and Duran Duran. An enthusiast of Lego, Kate finds relaxation in assembling intricate Lego sets, her latest project being the Dune Ornithopter.
Well,
Not bad. That's
not
pretty
bad,
good.
right?
That's
Not
pretty
bad,
good.
and it's that speaks about you. And I think in order to explore this fantastic human being, I think we would need sort of like 4 or 5 hours. I mean, look at the amount of things that you've done, that you
It's a lot.
represent.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's amazing. I want to start from. So it's very even hard to understand exactly where to start. So I'm very interested in your passion for geography. That's
Yes.
something that we share.
Uh-huh.
I also have that.
Great.
But you actually made something out of it, while mine remains still like knowing all the flags of all the countries in the world. But apart from that, I didn't
Yeah.
progress any further. So when did it start, that passion, and how that also, if there is any link to the video game industry, or please tell me everything.
Yeah, well, I think to explain the passion also will lead me into talking about my path into video games, because they are interconnected. But I think my root cause of why I love geography, why I love travel and culture, is because when I was young, I mean, both my parents were school teachers. And so, of course, when the summertime came, they were not working. So what did we do as a family? We often took trips. We took road trips. And so we'd get in our car, our old station wagon, and we would drive around the U.S. We'd sometimes go into Mexico, because I grew up in Southern California. And then sometimes we actually went into Canada as well. We drove all the way up north into Canada. And I think for me, I mean, we did this every summer. We were going somewhere, even if it was just for a couple of weeks. But we would just travel around. And for me, it's just that exposure to new things, new places, new people, and just that constant sense of wonder, at a world that's a lot bigger than the place you grew up in.
Oh, yeah.
And I think my parents were they were very instrumental in kind of instilling that in both my brother and I have an older brother, and about just this idea of being curious and being passionate about discovery. And so I know it was kind of launched in my childhood, and that never really stopped. It never really ended. And so when it came time for me to go into school or go into college after I left high school, my very first aspiration was to be an astronaut. That's what I wanted to do.
An astronaut.
An astronaut, an actual astronaut.
Okay. Well, I mean, Well, I mean, how old were you when you were starting feeling that?
Maybe 15, 16. Yeah.
Okay, so it was like a real thing.
It was a real thing. I wanted to fly. I wanted to learn how to fly, and I wanted to be an astronaut. And so when I graduated high school, my very first program was aerospace engineering. So I did aerospace engineering for 1 year at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, which is a great engineering school in California. And what I quickly found out, though, is that my passion and desire to be an astronaut does not equal my ability in calculus. So I'm a very right-brained individual, left-handed, right-brained. I'm not as analytical. Math has never been a strong point for me. And so what I did have, though, was a lot of artistic skill. I was a prolific writer in school. I actually won a district-wide award for writing in 6th grade. I wrote a book.
No, wait. What? Rewind. In sixth grade,
Yeah.
you wrote a book.
Yes. And it won the award for the whole district for the 6th grade.
And what was the book about?
It was basically Star Trek, but underwater. It was an underwater version.
So to Star Trek Atlantis.
Yeah,
sort
well,
of.
they actually later, there was a TV show called Sequest DSV that was on television for a few years. And actually, that Sequest show sort of copied my book.
Okay.
So, but I loved writing and I loved drawing. I always have. My mom was an artist, and so she was a very good artist, and she still is. And so I really picked up my artistic skill. And so instead of wanting to be an astronaut, what I decided my other passion was I wanted to be a conceptual artist for Lucasfilm, because I wanted to.
Right. Okay.
Because I wanted to work on a Star Wars movie really, really bad. Because I was such a Star Wars geek. So So what I found out is that a lot of the conceptual artists at Lucasfilm, they went to the industrial design program at Cal State Long Beach in Southern California.
Yeah.
And so I transferred to that school and I did industrial design for 2 years. And it really improved my style, it improved my technique. I could make drawings just like a conceptual artist or like storyboard art. But then after doing that program for 2 years, I was starting to get a bit disillusioned with the program. And I had already planned to get a minor in geography, you know, because I love geography, I love travel, I love maps, I love all those things. And so one day, I'm just, you know, actually it was while we were on the way to a John Williams concert, the composer of Star Wars and all Indiana Jones and all that. He always does a concert at the Hollywood Bowl every summer. And so we were going to his concert, and it was while we were in the car on the way to that concert where it just kind of hit me like lightning, where I'm like, I'm going to change my major to geography. I'm going to...
Okay, so that's when... Okay.
So that's what I did, just like that. I just made this decision. I'm going to go in tomorrow. I'm going to change my major, cancel all my classes, pick up new classes, and start doing geography instead. And that's exactly what I did. And so then I finished up my bachelor's degree in 2 years in geography. I got straight A's, which never happened to get ever before in my academic career. So I kind of felt like I found my home. I really understood this subject matter. And the other good thing is that all that artistic skill I could use for map making. So I also learned cartography and became a cartographer. So by the time I left my undergraduate work, which was 1988, I had a bachelor's degree in geography and a certificate in cartography. So that's what started that journey.
There are so many things that while you talk, there are so many things that I would like to interrupt and say why, how, when, what. But just like the best is just to let you go on. It's just it's mesmerizing the way it's every. I mean, I share some of the things that you said. For example, I also this great passion for geography and for languages.
Yeah.
I remember ever since I remember. I think I was like 12 years old, and my father. So we're in the car with my father, and we picked up two hitchhikers, and they were from France or from a French-speaking country. I don't know, but I remember that was like very small, sitting in the back seat, and I was hearing because my father could speak French, right? And sometimes it was also teaching us a few words, and I remember I was there behind us. Like one day I want to be a hitchhiker, or I want to be on a trip. I want to be speaking languages. I want to be a foreigner. It's good. And I had this idea of that it's cool to be a foreigner. And that's actually what I did when I was 19. I just left Italy and I started, and I never came back. I went to like multiple places. But this passion for the geography as in like different country, different language, different culture, different art, different food. For me, it was like it's so inspiring. Fills my chest with joy.
Exactly. Well, I feel that same way. I mean, to me, I am driven by discovery. I love learning new things. I'm very curious about like everything. And I remember a specific event that really kind of got my mind on that path when I think I was around 10 or 11 years old. So my dad was a high school teacher, a science teacher, but he was also a football and wrestling coach. And so one time they hosted a Japanese wrestling team in Southern California. And so one of the coaches and one of the wrestlers from the Japanese team stayed at our house with us. And I'll never forget that one morning at breakfast, so my mom made breakfast like bacon and eggs, traditional American breakfast.
Okay.
And I remember watching the Japanese guys eat their bacon with a knife and fork. Because for us, we normally pick it up and just eat it with our hands. And so to watch them like try to cut the bacon, because it was all falling, it was crispy, so it all fell apart. But to watch them like cut the bacon and then like try and eat it with a knife and fork, because obviously I would learn much later because I've spent a lot of time in Japan. We didn't have chopsticks for them, or we didn't have, but just watching them do that, I was just like, wait a minute, they don't do this. They don't even eat this. And I was very young, but it just like kind of dawned on me like, wow, these are people from a different part of the world.
Do you know one of the things that really made me realize I was already kind of older. One of the things that made me realize that incredibly different cultural, cultural differences. It was why I moved to Brazil. I am 20 something, and I remember that it was still 2003. So I moved to Brazil, and I was working before I was working for the group Fiat, Ferrari, and Maserati as a car designer. So I moved to Brazil and I worked for Iveco. Similar thing. I'm also projecting cars, or like actually, and there is a person sitting next to me, and this young lady. She actually goes all the time, like, and I'm sitting next to her. And in Italy, you don't do it.
Yeah.
You don't do it.
Yeah.
Or you can do it if you really don't have anything, but you don't. And then the crazy thing is her reaction when I actually took a tissue and I with my nose and she looked at me like, oh. So basically, we had the exact opposite. In Italy, you just turn and you do it. In Brazil, you rather do this.
Right.
And for me, it was like, how can it be such a simple thing, so different?
Yeah, I know. It's just one of those things that's always interesting. So, but yeah, so I mean, that's what I kind of went down that path of geography. And after I finished my bachelor's degree, I worked for 1 year as a cartographer. So there's a company in Southern California that was called Thomas Brothers Maps, and they were famous for these paper guides that you could buy, these atlases. And so I worked for them for a year. But then I was like, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. And I still had a lot of burning questions about geography and all that. So that's what made me decide to go to graduate school. And so when I applied to different graduate schools, I ended up being offered a teaching assistantship in Seattle at the University of Washington. And I thought Seattle was my long shot, but they were the first ones who contacted me saying, hey, we want you to come here. And I was so eager to leave Southern California because I felt that the weather was boring to me because it's just sunny all the time. And it's I like somewhere that has difference, that we actually have seasons, because Southern California really doesn't have really pronounced seasons.
You were which city, or you were close to?
I grew up in Mission Viejo, which is in Orange County. So it's between LA and San Diego.
Okay.
It's a beautiful area.
Beautiful.
Really nice area to grow
fantastic.
up. I was like 10 minutes from Laguna Beach. We were down at the beach, San Clemente, Laguna Beach, surfing, all of that. It was fun. It's a good place to grow up.
I can imagine.
But my brother was a total surfer dude, so yes. But
have you ever surfed? Like, were you also like a surfer? Yeah.
I was not good at it. I didn't do it very much.
But you do it, like, you tried, of course.
Of
course.
I
mean, you're there.
Everybody tries.
Everyone.
You surf, you skateboard, you roller skate, you do all that stuff because it's nice and sunny all the time.
Oh.
So, but I was eager to go somewhere different, so I was really happy. And I had been to Seattle only once before, a couple years earlier when we went up there during the summertime. And so I was really eager to go back because I thought Seattle was beautiful, just amazing, with mountains all around you and forests everywhere, really, really nice area. So that's what I did. I went ahead and took that position. I went to the University of Washington and decided to do my master's degree. And what I ended up doing is that, you get to a point when you're doing your graduate program where your advisory committee, your professors are basically pushing you to choose a subject. And the subject that I chose was using virtual reality. Because back then on the campus, Tom Furness, he was the guy, basically he's the grandfather of VR. And he created VR in the U.S. Air Force. He created heads-up displays in the U.S. Air Force. And he retired, and he became a teacher, a professor at University of Washington. And they gave him a chance to set up what's called the Human Interface Technology Lab, which is all about building VR technology. And this is back in 1989 when this is happening, when VR was barely even getting started.
Yeah.
And so I just happened to really accidentally run into them when they were setting up their lab on campus. And I just asked them, hey, what's going on here? And they're like, we're setting up a virtual reality lab. And I'm like, what is that? They're like, well, hey, come
and see.
We'll show you.
And see.
And I was I was so taken by the technology and just saw the promise of it that I said, this is it. I'm going to do my master's thesis about using VR for cartography, for map making. And what was funny is when I presented that to my committee, they initially said, no, you're not going to do that, because they said, that's just video games.
Of course, yeah.
Which, of course, that committee, they all know what I've been doing now for over 30 years. But So I did my master's thesis on VR, and in 1991 I published it, and it's hard to believe that was a long time ago, but then I started my PhD, and right as I started my PhD, in 1991, our geography department, we got a call from Microsoft, because Microsoft is right across the lake from Seattle. It's over in Redmond. Yeah. So they called us up and they said, hey, we need a cartographer to come over here and help us make some maps for a product. And so myself and one of my fellow grad students, we went over and applied. There was only one job available. So we both applied for the job, and I did not get it. He got the job because he's a programmer and I'm not. I don't do programming. I do more of the design side of things. So he got the job in late 1991, and then in early 92, actually literally right after I got back from my honeymoon after getting married, he called me up and he basically said, I really need your help. I need to make about 500 maps in the next 6 months, because we were making static bitmap images for the original Encarta encyclopedia. And if people don't know what that is, that was the last major digital encyclopedia before Wikipedia showed up online. So it was Encarta was sent out with copies of Windows. So many people, especially many people today who are maybe 35 or older, they grew up with Encarta because it was the standard thing that came with Windows.
Right. Now did you say I remember it, but you're really talking about what is it like
1990,
not in 2000s, right?
Well, it was actually
in the 90s.
The first version of Encarta was 1993.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're talking a long time, 30 years ago.
So. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Do you think question?
Yeah.
Sorry. One thing that I'm noticing, you are noticing, everyone's noticing, right? Without a GPS, without your phone, without Google Map, we go nowhere.
Yeah.
There are there are people that have lived in both eras,
yes.
right? Like you, like me.
Yeah.
I think we're a little bit more skilled. Like if tomorrow all the satellites go down, we know with all the garbage that there is in space, hit one of the the Starlink things, boom, all goes off. We go back to. I would know how to use a map.
Yeah.
First of all, because I always liked geography. Second of all, because I was a scout, and I could. But nowadays, they wouldn't know. They know the kid. The youngsters now they don't know. Do you know? Maybe you know it. Is there it has degraded the interest for geography in younger people? Do you actually know that or not?
No, I don't think the initial interest has not decreased, because I think when we're young, especially in elementary school, we still have that fascination with the world. I don't think that's ever going to go away, because we as human beings are naturally curious. And when we see a map, I have never met somebody who hates a map. Nobody I know hates maps. Everyone I talk to, when I tell them I'm a cartographer, they're usually the response I get 99% of the time is, oh my God, that's so cool because I love maps. It's because I think maps are a window to the imagination. We look at the map, we look at a globe, and our mind just starts thinking, what is there? And that's what I love about the science of geography, because it's all about asking, where is it and why is it there? That's really the two fundamental questions, is why did something happen in that place and not this place? And so we're always kind of comparing the difference. And so I love that line of thought, but I think it's very natural for us to ask that question about what is there, in the same way that we as children will ask, what is that? What is this thing? Because we're curious. And I think that curiosity is alive and well, but the difference is that with digital tools today, I think it makes that curiosity, it kind of kills it a little bit, because we make it far too easy to find things. Because all you have to do is open up your app on your phone, and you can easily find things, and you don't really have to go through the process of really thinking about, how am I finding something? All I'm doing is typing it in and it shows up. It's not the same as the old days where you have to open a paper map and actually look around and try and understand where something is.
Do you remember encyclopedias, the 20 volumes encyclopedias?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I love those.
But there is one thing. I'm very grateful, because my mom was such a. Okay, I was about to say culture Nazi, which is a good way, I would say. And it said she was incredible. We were on the table now in Italy, dinner, we sit at the table. It's not
Yeah.
like I eat, you eat. No.
Yeah.
We all sit,
Yeah.
you know, with a cloth for the table, sit and eat all the same, and we talk. Or we watch news, whatever. But you know, the thing
Yeah.
is, and it's beautiful. I'm trying to do it now
Yeah.
with my family. It's not that easy. It's not that easy
Yeah.
as it was like in the 80s or in the 90s. But it's so. And the beautiful thing, my mom was such an annoying person. Because like whatever, so if my brother was saying, oh, you know, I have been to, I don't know, I like China, let's say, random. She would say, oh, you know where China is? No. You know what they do? No. Go take the encyclopedia. And you were
Yes.
eating, you said, hey, can I go later? Now.
No.
Now, go. Take.
I love
Toronto.
it.
And everyone looking at my brother like, see, oh, China. Okay. And I was reading, and we all like sitting there like, but
Yeah.
that thing really set my way of thinking. It really discovered like a mindset of discovering,
Yes.
of like understanding more. And one thing, and I think that, so nowadays I listen to news, I listen to things, I just, you know, watch it. And one thing that I have that I really like is that I do fact checking.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I always, or whoever has an opinion on, I watch a YouTube video,
Yeah.
someone has an opinion, I don't give it for granted. Okay, he said it, that must be true.
Right.
I always try to think, is that the right thing? Is that the encyclopedia go check a mentality?
Well,
I love that.
What you're speaking to, I think, is the critical part of what we were taught critical thinking in our era in school. Growing up in school, I was in elementary school in the 70s. I was in high school in the early 80s. You know, and so back in those days, I think they still had a commitment to teaching critical thinking. Like, how do you discern the value of different information that you get, and how do you tell the difference? Because it's part of research, and we were taught how to do like hard research. How do you actually find good sources and bring them together, write a report? I mean, some of the most difficult classes I ever had was my advanced placement classes in high school. Like, my advanced placement English teacher was really that was the hardest class I've ever taken in my academic career. But she was Mrs. Bayless. What's her name? She was such an amazing.
You remember her?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
She was such an amazing teacher, and at the time we hated her because she was so harsh with us. She was so difficult and hard on us in terms of forcing us to do certain things. And yet, when I look back on that, I'm like, I credit her for giving me the ability to be a great writer, because I do a lot of writing, and I've done a lot of writing of books, I've done writing of articles and things like that. And I actually finally, several years back, I reached out to her and I thanked her for it, because I told her, without you, I believe I would not be where I am today, because of your rigor in your teaching, even though we despised you for it at the time, but we were just stupid high school students back then. Your job is to hate your teacher. So, you know, that's part of what being in high school is about. But now in hindsight, I mean, I love the dedication and the passion she had for teaching. Because I remember in the very first class of that year, because it was a year-long course, she said, whether you like it or not, I will force you to be good writers. You will be good writers by the time this class is over. And she was exactly right. So.
And you are a good writer.
I feel that I'm pretty good.
You are pretty good. So modest, but yes, you are.
But yeah, so with geography, I mean, when like I was mentioning, I went. I started as a contractor at Microsoft because my colleague from grad school got that
the job. Yeah.
So he calls me up. I came over for a 6-month contract. I made all those maps for Encarta, and then I thought I was done. I was just going to go back to my doctorate work and keep working on it. Well, then the Microsoft folks renewed the contract right away. They said, great, you finished this, now we need you to work on this. And I'm like, okay, great, the money is great. I'm newlywed, I'm a starving grad student, I could use the money. So I'm like, yeah, I'll do this. And so I did another contract, they renewed it again, I became the cartography lead for Encarta Encyclopedia. And so I was the cartography lead for a few years while I was a contractor, which that's a little controversial. Microsoft got in trouble for that later because they hired people like me that we called them permatemps. So we were basically working like employees.
Permatemps. So
Permatemps.
temps and
Yeah.
permanent. It's like
There was actually a big class
very
action.
ethical.
Yeah. There was actually a big class action lawsuit against Microsoft because of this.
Oh,
because
wow.
they were essentially taking advantage of us because we were working as full-time employees without any of the benefits. So no stock options, no health benefits, nothing. But anyway, after 3.5 years of that, I basically told them, I said, look, you either find me a headcount position or I'm gone. I'm going to go back and finish my PhD. But honestly, I was having a ton of fun. I mean, this is pure applied geography. I'm doing this, taking my knowledge of geography and cartography and using it in a business environment like Microsoft. And it was just, I was having a blast. And so amazingly, they found a headcount literally overnight. I came in the next day and said, yeah, we found a position. I'm like, really?
I guess
Yeah, okay.
you look hard, huh, for that, I'm
it's
sure.
So why did this not happen 3.5 years ago? But anyway, so what they wanted me to do was they basically told me in general what they wanted me to do, and then they said, write your job title and description, and then we'll just hire you into that job. So I wrote my own job description, and the position that I created is geopolitical strategist, because they needed somebody, because I was working on the mapping products at Microsoft primarily.
Yeah.
They needed somebody to focus on how do we show Taiwan? How do we show Kashmir, northern India? How do we show disputed areas of the world? How do we manage the disputed boundaries, place names that are controversial, all of those kinds of things? Because a company like Microsoft can get in a lot of trouble with different governments depending on what map they deliver. Like if you get the map,
right.
if you're not showing Taiwan as part of China, then your product is not going into China.
Right,
So,
right.
things like that. So, and because Microsoft at the time was making a giant push into mapping products, they wanted somebody to do this job. And I'm like, I could easily do this job. This is part of my background. So I took that full-time position. So I put my PhD on hold. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do this right now. I had been going like perpetually on leave every year as a grad student, which you couldn't do. But eventually my PhD committee said, let's get real. You just took a full-time position at Microsoft. You're not going to finish your PhD, which, and so this is 1995 when I got my full-time position. So then the next couple years I was, doing this role, working for the mapping products. But during that time, I started getting questions from all over the company, from different product groups, because they found out that there's like a real geographer working at Microsoft. So I would get questions about like flags, like is this flag the right flag? Is this gesture okay to use for an icon? I mean, all these random questions about stuff. And for most of these questions, I could answer them off the top of my head, and if I couldn't, I knew where to find the answer really easily. So we actually had an internal alias in the company called Dr. Ware. And so people could email Dr. Ware and they would get an answer, and I was Dr. Ware. I was the person answering all those questions across the company.
You were behind
Yes.
the Dr. Okay.
So, and I even had on my door, and I still have the name plaque somewhere at home, I had my name and it said Dr. Ware underneath on my door at Microsoft. So, what it was telling me, even at that stage, is that there was an interest and a demand for this kind of knowledge helping other groups across the company, not just the mapping products. Well, then what happened in 1997, we had this big problem in South Korea with the map that in Carter World Atlas. We made a mistake with one of the borders, the border of North Korea and China, and it was it's an area called Bakdusan, which is sacred to the Korean people, of all Korean people, not north and south. And so we made a mistake. We accidentally showed that feature as being completely within China, which it isn't. And so we had to fix that, but it became front page news in South Korea. People were very upset. The Ministry of Information of South Korea was very angry at us. And what it forced them to do was they went through all the Microsoft products looking for other errors that they considered to be problematic from the Korean perspective.
Did they find any?
Yeah, they found a lot. They gave us they found a very big list. We did not fix everything because not everything they showed us was an actual error. It was their perspective, which is not necessarily always factual. So, but anyway, we fixed a lot of the critical things. And so then, that product was done and Carter World Atlas was out there. Well, then 3 months later, the very first Age of Empires was released. And it was, so this is back pre-Xbox when Microsoft is trying to grow its gaming business. A lot of PC games besides Flight Sim. I had already been working on games at this point because my very first game was Flight Sim 5.0 in 1993 because they approached me. Because when I was doing even contract work, the Flight Sim team approached me and had some questions, some geography-related questions, so I helped them on that game. And then I started working kind of, informally on a few games before, after that. And then Age of Empires comes along, and they make this big mistake from the Korean perspective. They added a historical scenario in the game that involves Korea, and the Korean Ministry of Information, they saw it, and this is one of the things that they wanted to have corrected in Encarta, which we did not correct. So then we have the scenario we're now showing it in Age of Empires, and they got really, really angry because they said, we told you to fix this just a few months ago, and you didn't fix it. But wait, we were talking about Encarta. We were not talking about Age of Empires. But see, they don't care because it's just they're both Microsoft products. But the problem is that Age of Empires was made by Ensemble Studios in Dallas, Texas. Encarta was made in Redmond, in Washington. These two groups have no reason to talk to each other. They almost don't even know each other exists because it's a very big company. And this is what gave me the idea. I said, we need to address this risk because can get our company in a lot of trouble.
That's the story. I also understand their perspective in a way.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
they don't know about how Microsoft, for them, Microsoft, the Western culture, the West,
exactly.
like they are, the gringos, depicting our countries in this way, and of course, I can understand it. And how, in the end, I think that they couldn't change Age of Empire, right?
No.
I don't know.
What we did in that scenario, because the scenario involved what was in the Middle Ages in Korea called the Chosun Empire, and they were invaded by the Japanese, and the Japanese had a massive invasion force that almost took over the Chosun Empire. But in Korea, they said that didn't happen. They said that Japan did not invade us like that. So in order to release the game into South Korea, we had to create a special patch only for Korean players that now shows Korea invading Japan, which did not happen.
Oh, because that was the propaganda they were...
Yes. And so that created a big debate on the team about the nature of truth and the ethics of doing this because, now we are serving government propaganda in Age of Empires. But yet that is the cost of selling the game into that market. If you don't do that, then you don't sell the game. And I had to remind people because some team members were very upset about this, as they should be, because it is a very important subject that needs to be discussed. But from Microsoft's perspective, it was just simply a business decision. That's the cost of going into that market. Just like a few years earlier, I had to remind them in the French and Italian versions of Encarta Encyclopedia, we had different heights for Mont Blanc. Because at the time, the two governments did not agree on the exact height of the mountain by a few centimeters. And yet, because an encyclopedia is an educational resource, it has to conform to the local educational standard, which had different heights for the mountain.
Really?
And so, the two language versions had different facts.
Funny, I'm Italian. I didn't know that we had different.
I think they resolved it since then, but this is way back in the early 90s. So
4,810 meters. I don't know how many centimeters, but I know that.
Yeah,
it's very close. It's very close to where I come from. So you have to know it. And it's part of geography 101 in Italy.
Yeah,
I like the height of the White Mountain, Monte Bianco. So that's part of that. Okay. Well, that's how. Wow. The story. It's incredible, and that kind of probably made you think of, culturalization and this type of topics, because I know that's also a big topic for you, right?
Really, I was already, without even knowing it, I was already doing what I now call culturalization. But now that whole incident showed me how vulnerable Microsoft is. Because if you have one group doing one action and another group doing another action that's not consistent within the same company, then that's going to get all of Microsoft's products banned in a certain place. And we can't afford that. So that's what gave me the idea to create a new kind of team inside of Microsoft. So I wrote a proposal for what I originally called the Microsoft Office of International Affairs. That sounds kind of grandiose, but that's what I called it. And I pitched it to my VP in the division that my group was in. So I pitched it to my VP, and they said, yeah, that's an interesting idea, but no, we don't really need this. But I was resilient. I was not going to give up, because I had a lot of people around me who were basically saying, we really need this. We really need this kind of resource, because we can't make this mistake again. So I went to a second VP and got rejected. A third VP got rejected. A fourth VP and got rejected. And so now we're talking about, it's been 7 months of me going to different VPs and pitching this idea. And of course my pitch is getting much better every time I do it. I finally reached the fifth VP, this guy Paul Moritz, the only VP I talked to who was not from the United States. He was from South Africa. He approved it in 5 minutes. When he heard the idea, the first thing he asked me is like, I thought we do this already. And I'm like, no, we don't. That's why I'm here. And he's like, well, now we're going to do this. And I'm like, what? He's like, yes, we're going to...
Did you get what I said? Because like the four previous one, they just like...
Yeah. No, he totally understood. And he's like, let's do this now. What do you need from me? And that was it. So that was on a Tuesday. By the following Monday, I was in a different building with a new office. I have 3 people working for me. And now I show up that morning with a whole new team that Microsoft's never had before. And I'm kind of like, okay, now what do I do?
Beautiful.
Yeah. So, but now the thing is that I had an official mandate to make sure that my team's job is to help Microsoft avoid political and cultural risk in all of its products. And that meant all of the games too. And so even though I had already been working with Office and Windows and teams like that, and I'd been informally working with some of the games, now this became a formal mandate from the highest point of the company that this has to happen. And so that's what I did for the next 7 years. I ran this team. I created a bunch of policies inside the company. We basically institutionalized the company's thinking around these issues, and we created tools to help them out. It became a formal process on the games as well. And that's really how I started working on games formally. So that I had already done, quite a few games before then, but now, this whole process, what I called the geopolitical quality review, was now part of all game development as well. And so I worked on all the Halos and Age of Empires and Fables and Forzas and like all the stuff that Microsoft was making back then, all the way until I left in 2005. And that because in 2004, I was able to get onto this master checklist that exists at Microsoft, that every single product must be able to check everything on this list. Now, most of the things on the list are like legal or technical requirements, but I was able to get one line item that pertains to geopolitical and cultural risk, which meant that the teams had to basically use the processes that I had set up. And if they can't account for it, then they can't ship their product.
Okay.
And once that happened, I felt like my job here is done.
It's done.
And that's why I eventually left in early 2005 to create my own company.
Okay, which is?
Geographer.
Geographer, yes. And that's like, what is the current request or seek for your type of service of culturalization? Do you also offer service like globalization in more, or is more specific to culturalization?
It's more specific to culturalization. There's so many companies that do localization, they do globalization, internationalization, all of that kind. I don't really do that. What I focus on is what my strength is, which is looking at the market-to-market cultural and geopolitical differences. And so when I'm working on a game, and the requests are so varied at any given time. I work across many different companies. I've worked with all the major game companies in the industry. I've worked on many, many different franchises. At any given time, I'm working on like maybe 10 to 15 games at the same time. So that's why at this point in my career, now 31 years into it, I've worked on 277 games as of today.
277?
Yes. 277 games.
Holy cow.
And in fact, there's another one that just popped up yesterday, so it might be 278, but I haven't signed the contract yet. So,
okay. Okay.
But the requests are very, it is widely varies, because sometimes it might be, can you please check this one character design? Other times, like, can you check this like fictitious alphabet that we created? Because we want to make sure that there's no symbols in there that could be a problem.
Yeah.
A lot of times, like for example, I've worked on every BioWare game since Jade Empire. So that's a lot of them. All the Mass Effects, Dragon Ages, Star Wars The Old Republic. I'm finishing up work on Dragon Age Dreadwolf right now. And on those projects, typically I'm working with them from day one, and I'm working with them across the entire project. So we're talking like multi-year engagements. So I initially look at in the concept art, I read the initial version of the script, I try and understand the world building that's happening. What world are you building? Who is in it? Are there different factions in there?
Factions, of course.
Politics, religions. What happens in this world? And what's the player's agency in the world? What's the player's role in the narrative? And how do they interact with the world? So I'm trying to understand like the biggest picture, because some of the themes that are coming up at that stage in the concept phase, I can already start helping them course correct if I see something that could be a problem in a certain region. And that's what I'm trying to do, is I want their creative vision to be successful everywhere. But that sometimes means that you have to tweak a few things to make sure it's going to be viable everywhere.
Well, that to me, of course, because of like my interest in life and etc., that sounds the most beautiful job ever.
I love my job.
No, I know. I would love it too. It's the idea of culturalization. But imagine, so it's not actually just telling people, okay, you are releasing your game in Korea, so this kind. I don't know, in China, you can't put skeletons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's not only that.
No.
It's about a new world. Said you need to understand, so you need to process the data that they give you, and then you need to come up with ideas like that faction shouldn't say that thing or shouldn't have that flag,
Right.
because right? So that
Exactly.
would oh my god, it's so...
And there's so many examples. I mean, that's when I give a lot of lectures, like I gave my lecture here at Reboot yesterday. So many examples. I mean, even dancing games. I've worked on dancing games like Dance Central, where I'm looking at like gestures and body language, because gestures are highly culturally specific, as well as different body language that can be offensive in different cultures. So I'm looking at things like that. I've worked on Civilization, Rise of Nations, Age of Empires for the history, because history is very sensitive in different markets. When I work on fantasy games, I'm looking for like the faith systems that they use, because sometimes the faith systems that they make for a fantasy game or a fictional world usually emulate something from our world. Like they copy Roman Catholicism, but then they change it a little bit. They kind of did like what Game of Thrones did that. And a lot of games have done that. And so I have to look at all of these things to kind of make sure that there's nothing in there that could be potentially problematic. And I mean, I've dealt with some issues that have been extremely problematic, because that's another way I engage with companies, is they will often come to me if they made a mistake and now they're finding out after the release of their game, they're getting all this online backlash, and they come to me and they're saying, we need your help. How do we fix this?
Do you want to know like a very good story on this specific thing?
Yes.
So, it's the year 2006. I am working for Nintendo. So I was a localization tester at the time for Italian. Right, I just came back from Brazil, and because of like my incredible good knowledge of Brazilian Portuguese, and basically I'm native in two languages, even though I was not born there, they hire me, and I am at some point I am a tester for Super Mario Striker Charge Football, something like that. I don't remember the exact title, but this football with Mario and Waluigi. When you are winning the game, Waluigi does this gesture. It's like... and I put a bug in saying like that in Italian, it's an incredibly offensive thing. You do it when people do it when you go to the stadium and they insult each other, and that, well, of course, can be understood what it means. For some reason, they didn't change. Well, I think the reason was it was towards the end of the development, so all those animation that were already there, changing that would have been like, it would have taken probably long. But that's an incredible thing about culturalization.
Well, like in Dance Central, what's the rock on gesture? You know the gesture, but so I flagged it for Italy. This gesture, it's got a different meaning in Italy.
Yes, very different meaning. Yes, especially
Yeah.
Especially if you do it like that.
Like that,
Right
yeah.
there, because you're really saying to you.
Exactly.
So,
well,
yeah.
it's same with Greece. When you do this gesture like that, it's called the mozza. You know, and flashing your hand like that is basically the same as the middle finger. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, when you do this, when you kind of like that, yeah.
Okay, for the people that are listening, I don't know, on Spotify, like, well, you haven't seen, but this Greek thing is like opening your hand and putting, and pointing the fingers towards the other person, sort of.
And if you're Greek, I apologize. I was just showing an example.
Exactly. And also if you're Italian, then of course we're just like, no offense
This is
to
for
anyone.
educational purposes.
Exactly. But yeah, well, that's super interesting, like incredible. These things are super cool to know about it. Like
Yeah.
that's exactly the whole thing about knowing cultures, knowing the world, knowing what to do, when to do it, how to do it.
Well, and and sometimes the issues get pretty deep too, because we're not just talking about like something like a gesture or a symbol or something like that. I mean, we also have to look at like the meaning behind the game or that potential allegory that we are suggesting in the game,
Right.
or even when it's unintentional. Now, obviously, a lot of games intentionally use allegory because they're trying to like have a hidden meaning in the story. But then sometimes it's unintentional. So like on Halo 2, which I worked on the original Halo games, this character is called there's a character in Halo 2 called the Arbiter. And so he's one of the alien characters, and he serves the Covenant, which is this quasi kind of religious alien group that's run by 3 prophets. One of the prophets is called the Prophet of Truth, which is often used synonym for Muhammad. So, but I was willing to let that go because you could argue and defensively argue that Prophet of Truth could be used for any religious figure.
That is true.
However, this Arbiter character, his original name before the game released was Dervish. And Dervish is a title from Sufi Islam. So now you've got the Dervish serving the Prophet of Truth, and what's the goal of the Covenant? What they want to do is activate these halo rings that causes all sentient life in the galaxy to be destroyed. So it's a weapon of mass destruction. And then who's trying to stop them? This American soldier, well, he's UNSC, but he's an American voice.
Yeah.
The Master Chief, super soldier, the hero of the game. And so he's going to stop them from doing this. And the other problem, this is the first major game title we're releasing after 9/11. And so you put all of that together, and what could be the hidden meaning here? And so I tested this with some of my Microsoft colleagues in the Middle East region without saying anything to them. I just kind of presented them with the scenario. And what I heard from them is exactly what I was expecting. Some of them said, oh, I see a revenge fantasy of the United States against Islam. I'm like, we don't want that interpretation in the game. That is not what the game is trying to say. But given all of the things I just said, that's how people kind of could interpret it. So that's why we made the decision that I felt that you can break the allegory or create what I call allegorical distance by changing the name of the Arbiter or changing the name of the Dervish character to the Arbiter, which is what they did. And that's why the character's called the Arbiter and not the Dervish.
That's and you think that small thing was enough for then your colleagues in the Middle East to say, okay, now it's different.
Yes.
It felt.
Yes, because now you don't have an obvious name from Islam, Dervish. You're not using Dervish, even though you're still using Prophet of Truth. But when you take that one title out, because Dervish is very specific to Sufi Islam in the same way that Pope is specific to Roman Catholicism. It's like it's inseparable. So that's why I felt if you don't use the name Dervish, then you're kind of making it a more defensible story.
Okay. So it is not really that direct and like.
Right, but that's also the kind of thing that I have to look for when I'm looking at a game. It's that deep.
It's beautiful work. Really, it's a beautiful job. Beautiful job. Incredible. If we already got like 52 minutes, sort of. It's a lot of things. So now I want to ask you something else.
Yes, please.
Even though me and you, we could have this conversation tonight. It rings like really. Please tell me more. Tell me more stories. But I want also for the audience to know you from what you are now.
Yeah.
I know. So she wrote me 100 million things. I found online so much that I had to stop AI to generate this. you know, the thing, because if it was so long, I said, no, cut this and this and that. It's just too much. This person has too many things. The one funny thing. Now I'm gonna read something to you. So wait a second. You need to give me a second because I'm gonna find it. Because exactly when I ask you, can you also tell me something about you personally, what you do, blah blah blah. So you were very kind and told me I love to travel, a lot of travel, creative, a lot of discovery. I've always been fascinated with technology. So technology, then there is sci-fi, that you're big into sci-fi, the whole thing with then we have like you play also, you do. And that's what I want to ask you about is this cosplay that you do with your daughter.
Yeah.
Which for me, like the relationship, I have a great relationship with my daughter, super strong, and this kind of things for me, like they're brilliant. But the funny thing, and that she says, I owe somewhere in my this is it. In my free time, I like when I have some time. I also like to play games, which is because also you, apart from cosplay, you also like read mix of non-fiction and fiction books. And then you say like, when I have some free time, do you have free time? Because like, do you actually play games at this point? Because like, how can Kate Edwards have free time to play games?
I don't have much free time to play games. I'm very proud of myself that last year I finished one game, Diablo 4. I actually played the whole game. It took me several weeks because I was so busy, but I played through the game. And then this year I finished Baldur's Gate 3. Just one time. I don't have time to play it multiple times. I play it one time through with one character.
But how many hours is like Baldur's Gate from like a main story?
What was it? Maybe 60?
60. So you had 60 hours.
Well,
like,
in tiny little bits. Over like 60 days.
It's like 50 minutes, 50 minutes, 50 minutes.
No, I try and set aside, like I'm not going to play it unless I have like at least an hour.
Okay.
And so what I did is I kind of set a schedule for myself because I was really into the game because I think it's an amazing game. I think it deserves all the awards it's getting. So what I would do is that normally I eat dinner around, 7, 8 p.m. So then like around 5 or 6 p.m., that's when I would say, okay, I think I'm going to stop working, fire up the game, play before dinner, and then I'll eat dinner. And because usually after dinner, then I go back to work. So I keep working on client work. So yeah.
So you take that 1 hour for really only for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Playing.
And I might play later in the evening, but it depends. Usually by that point, I'm tired because usually I always read right before I go to bed. So so I usually spend at least a half hour, 45 minutes reading. So I never want to take away from that time. Because I love my reading time. So, but yeah.
I want to know about your daughter and cosplay. Cosplay is is together with, I've never been big in sci-fi. Actually, there is an episode where I'm talking to Dave from Steel Media, PG Connect. Yeah. And I told him, like, please inspire me with sci-fi. Because I never liked it. I don't know why. It's, but he actually kind of made it grow a little bit. I mean, I started watching a few things here and there. I started watching even Star Trek.
Well, for me, I grew up. I watched. Star Trek, the original show. I was too young when it was originally on the air because by the time it ended, I was only 4 years old. But that's around the time when I start remembering stuff. I never remember seeing because my parents would not have watched it. But I did. I watched the original moon landing in 1969. I remember that like it was yesterday, watching it on my grandma's TV.
How old were you, if I may ask? You were 4.
I was 4.5 years old.
And you remember that?
I remember it very clearly.
I remember nothing about when I was 4. Like, I'm really all wiped out.
But then, of course, they started showing reruns of Star Trek, and I saw the original Twilight Zone, which also was before my time, but they did a lot of reruns when I was growing up. We had all kinds of, a lot of the British sci-fi shows, like Space 1999 and the Jerry Anderson, all the Thunderbirds, the puppets and all that stuff. And what I was really into was the Ray Harryhausen, the animated films, like The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, Mysterious Island. He made all the amazing special effects of the stop motion animation. And I was so amazed with that because actually in high school, a friend of mine and we bought a Super 8 millimeter camera because there were no video cameras back then, and we actually made our own Super 8 animated films in high school with clay animation. So because we loved Ray Harryhausen, but so I was always into it. Well, plus I should say, this may be an important point, the first film I ever saw in a theater was 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh,
and I was like,
that.
now I was brought to the theater, I think, with my parents. I was too young to see that film, because I'll tell you, if you've never seen the film, but at the end of the film, there's the big space baby, you know, because he turns into the space baby. That terrified me.
Yeah,
I was like hiding from the space baby, and of course, I didn't understand anything about that movie other than the visuals were just like, oh my god, this is amazing. You know, so that was a huge influence too.
By the way, that movie now is incredibly
It's
actual.
still amazing.
It's still like, especially with the advent of AI.
It's
like that is like the
Yeah.
role that in the end, like, it kind of like made
It's
them.
remarkable. Yeah, it's still such a phenomenal film. But but then like when I was in high school, I mean, I was in high school during the golden era of sci-fi cinema. So then we had, obviously Star Wars in 1977. I was 12 years old. And then when Empire Strikes Back came out 3 years later, I was in high school. And then in my senior year of high school was Return of the Jedi, 1983. But then we had Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1981. I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan. And then 1982 was like the golden year. In 1982, the summer of 82, we had E.T., Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, The Road Warrior, The Thing, Poltergeist, Conan the Barbarian, all in the same summer. All of these, and Tron, the original Tron came out that year. All of these films came out in the same summer. And it was just
Really?
like, yes.
It's all 82?
Yes, all of these films in 1982, because a lot of the studios, after the initial success of Star Wars 5 years earlier, and then like Close Encounters came out later that year, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, all the studios were like, oh my God, we got to make sci-fi films. And so but it took a few years, so then they finally all came together in 1982 with just all of this wave of amazing films. And Blade Runner came out in 1982.
No.
Yes. You
of sure?
Yes, I'm positive. All of those.
Is that old, that movie?
Yes. I was there, Gandalf. I saw it.
I watched that because when I watched it, I was also very young, but I'm from 78.
Yeah.
But I watched it I think I was 10 years old the first time that I watched it.
Yeah.
So that I thought it was, but no, like 1982.
And it's still, I mean, just like 2001, Blade Runner still stands up as one of the most amazing sci-fi films ever made. But I mean, all of that really influenced me because, again, I love world building. I love using my imagination. And so I really loved all of that. And so, when I was growing up, I mean, doing stuff like costumes and cosplay, I mean, when Return of the Jedi came out in 1983, my brother and I went to the premiere. He was an X-Wing pilot and I was a TIE fighter pilot. So that was one of the first times I formally cosplayed at an event. And then the next year is when Ghostbusters came out, 1984. So I made my own Ghostbusters outfit. I found the same jumpsuit. I put everything together. Yeah, I didn't make a backpack though. I got that years later. But so yeah, I have a Ghostbusters outfit.
See, I've never done cosplay, but now that you said it, that is the one thing that I would do as a Ghostbuster.
It's fun.
I would do that.
Yeah. So then later, as my daughter got older and as she finally kind of told us that she really wanted to go into costume design, which she was a great costume designer even before she formally did it. She was taught amazing sewing skills by her grandmother, and so she's very good at what she does. And
that's what she does currently?
Yeah, she does. Yeah, that's her job.
That's her job.
And so she got started informally. She was doing it for myself and for her, and maybe for a few friends. And then I decided at one point, I said, I want to cosplay as a female version of Thor, because I'm 191 centimeters, and I got the look.
Yeah.
And I said that because I love the Thor character, and so she and I did a Thor and Loki costume together, which she made. And then, I remember the very first time that I put on that Thor costume when it was all done, and because we were at San Diego Comic-Con, and we try and do a dress rehearsal before the event, but sometimes we don't have time to do it. So we get to the car garage early in the morning. We're putting on all our stuff. And I remember once I had all my gear on and I'm standing there and I've got my Mjolnir in my hand and I'm standing there and I'm just like, I feel so freaking kick-ass.
Oh, so
you know?
powerful.
And what was interesting is that as I came to do it more and more, because since then I've cosplayed as, I have different versions of Thor, like the one I use now is Jane Foster Thor from the comic books, what they call Mighty Thor. I played Captain Marvel, Wonder Woman. I have my own Indiana Jones cosplay.
You do?
Yeah. I've done a Jedi. I've done all kinds of stuff. I've done Captain Carter from What If. Some of those require me to wear a wig, but like the Thor one is a lot of people in this industry know me for my Thor cosplay, and they joke about me being from Asgard and all that kind of stuff. But what's interesting, because I've had a lot of colleagues, even at like events like this, ask me, why do you cosplay? What do you get out of it? And I tell them, I said, well, there's two levels.
Same question I will have.
There's two levels. One level, of course, it's something I get to do with my daughter, because she's 36 now, and so we don't get to see each other as much. She lives in Southern California. I live in Seattle, if I'm even home, if I'm not somewhere else in the world. And so I only get to see her like 2 or 3 times a year. And at least 2 of those times are WonderCon and San Diego Comic-Con, where we get to cosplay together. And it's something that we share, especially if we're doing characters that are related to each other. So we get to hang out together the whole time. Plus, it's the joy of wearing her work. I'm wearing my daughter's,
I can imagine.
her handiwork and her amazing art, and that's a really good feeling too. But the other part of it too, as I came to realize, is that especially like the Thor character, when people ask me why do you do that, and I said, because when you're wearing that costume, at least in my case, I said, for a little while, it's the external representation of how I feel about myself. I feel kick-ass, and I feel strong.
Well, you are kick-ass.
And so
you are kick-ass.
Well, thank you. But I really feel like it's kind of like, if you want, it's like, maybe it's a superhero complex, but like having it actually show like that in a really explicit way is kind of really fun, because it's like, that's who I am. That's who I feel like I am, and so that's what I think it's really fun every once in a while, to just basically just show it, be explicit about it. And I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why people cosplay, and we've met so many amazing people in the community, and that's one thing I love about the cosplay community, because we're all in it together and nobody's judging each other. It's like, it doesn't matter if you've got the skills to make a beautiful, perfect costume, or just something you threw together with clothing you found at a secondhand store. The fact is that you're trying, and you're part of the community of cosplay, and it's so, I find it to be very welcoming, in the same way that I feel the game industry tends to be that way too. Like, if you're trying to make a game, it doesn't even matter if it's like a great game, but the fact that you love games and you're trying, you're one of us, and I really like that.
That's incredible. I didn't know at all about this community. Seems like very healthy community.
It is. I think it is. Yeah, it's really fun to be a part of it.
And then at least you can spend time with your daughter. No, I understand everything you said, and it's incredible. And I wish one day I will find something to do with my daughter. I think like that. I think it's probably going to be sport, because I'm a very big sport person, and she is a kick-ass kid.
Yeah.
She's 5 years old. Like, just yesterday in the evening, we were out for dinner. I brought her with me. And at the age of 5, she was already going by herself, not at the table. She got off the table, she went to the waiter, 5 years old, and she goes to the waiter and asks, I want this and I want this. Can you bring me more ketchup? Like, she just goes.
That's
she
awesome.
She walks around, she say hello to people. She goes to the other table, then like really go to people like, hey, hello. I was well,
I would say, another thing that I love about cosplay, because I grew up as a extreme introvert. I am an introverted person, but
wow.
I have
well hidden.
I have learned to fake extroversion like I'm doing right now, because I love public speaking. I love getting on a stage and talk and giving a lecture, but it wasn't always that way. I would be terrified of doing that when I was younger. Really terrified. And so I feel like every time, even yesterday when I gave my lecture here, every single time I get on a stage, when I do it a lot now, there's a little voice in the back of my head that basically is declaring the victory of being able to get on that stage in a way that I knew back in, like, if I was in high school or early college days, there's no way I would have done that. Not a chance. And cosplay is similar because cosplay, you're putting yourself out there in a very ridiculous way. I mean, you're wearing this extreme costume and drawing a lot of attention to yourself. But I find that it's okay. I don't mind that because it's not that I'm seeking attention. It's the fact that I'm overcoming my own introversion to be able to get to the point of actually doing that. And that feels like a victory.
I have the fear. So I don't have the fear of being on a stage, but I'm incredibly afraid of singing in front of people. Like I'm very extroverted. I can talk. I can make presentation. Actually, we're working on a presentation now for probably they will be ready by September for PGC in Helsinki. But and I don't have a problem with that. But if you ask me to sing in front of people, and I'm quite a good singer.
Okay, I'm not. So
I'm quite a good singer, and I freeze. So I can relate.
Yeah.
Okay, that is very interesting. The story about the cosplaying. It's one of the other realms where I'm not familiar with. I do not understand it because I don't know it.
Yeah.
Right. So I see these people putting all this thing and they're like, wow, so much effort. I can only admire. The only thing that I ever felt is admiring them because I see the level of details that it's there, and I think like, wow. And just to dress up for this event, and I'm thinking like, wow,
Well, what's cool too is that I've convinced a few colleagues and friends to cosplay because initially they're like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
That's really geeky, or I don't want to do it. But eventually I convinced them, just try it. Just pick a character and try it. Figure out something you want to do. And every single time that has happened, after they do it the first time, they're like, that was so much fun.
Yeah,
they're like, I want to do it again. I'm like, yeah, I've never heard anyone say, that was dumb.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Let me see. There was another thing that I wanted to ask you, particularly regarding your about music. I don't think we have much left, but I know you are a big fan of music.
Yes.
First of all, it plays a big role in your life.
Yes.
Right. So what I know is that you like a lot, like movie theme songs.
Yes.
Right, and you listen to it.
A lot.
No, a lot.
Yes.
Then I know also like music mostly from the 70s, 80s, right? So you mentioned about you mentioned about not the Doors.
The Police.
The Police, right? Duran Duran.
U2, yeah. Depeche Mode.
Depeche Mode.
All those bands.
Do you listen to a lot of music?
I do, because I mean when I'm working, when I kind of get in my zone, I'm either streaming something, because I work while I have something streaming on a second screen, or I listen to something while I work.
When you stream, what do you stream? Like
usually, like if it's a series I've never seen, and I watch like the Ozark series because I'd never seen it and I never watched it when it was on. So I basically just stream the entire series while I'm just sitting
while
at home
you're working.
Yeah.
I cannot do that. I try.
Yeah.
I actually like to, for example, So music is great, but even music, it needs to be, for example, either techno or classical or something that doesn't have words that I understand.
Yeah.
If I put some Italian music, I cannot focus because they speak and I cannot.
Yeah.
And the same for unless I really need to do some tedious job.
Yeah.
I know Excel file, copy, copy, send email, copy the same, and then it's okay. Then I can put something.
Well,
otherwise I can't.
Well, if I really need to get into the zone, that's where I might put on like a movie or a series I've seen 100 times. Because it's just then it becomes like white noise.
Okay.
It's something familiar. So it's like it's nice. It's like it gives that ambiance. It's like before COVID, my typical work style was I would do a lot of calls in the morning, and then in the afternoon I would go to my local coffee shop, usually a Starbucks because it's Seattle.
Sorry, I was not expecting that.
But so I'd go to a Starbucks and I would basically work there because the ambiance of the environment really helped me focus.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that white noise in the background. But yeah, as far as music goes, I mean, it's funny because when I was in high school, I was never into the pop music of that time, which was all the great 80s bands. all of those amazing bands.
Same here.
I wasn't into it. I listened to movie scores all the time. John Williams, Jerry Goldsmith, Bernard Herrmann, all these classic composers from back in the day. I loved their music. I still listen to all their music. But now today we've got amazing composers like Michael Giacchino. We've got Hans Zimmer. We've got a lot of
Hans Zimmer is good.
Phenomenal artists today. And I love it all. I love all of that music because it just there's just a special quality. Because to me, modern movie scores are what classical music was back in like the 19th century. Because like some of the most iconic scores of the 19th century, which is what I love, like the Romantic era with Wagner, Tchaikovsky, Rimsky-Korsakov, all of that music, because that music was written to opera and it was written to ballet, so it was written for a story. So basically, because they did not have film, they were basically making soundtracks, making scores for a narrative. Like the Ring Cycle is one of the most phenomenal scores I've ever heard. And yet, then we fast forward into the era of movies, which now, what are they doing? They have composers composing a score for a narrative, which now is on film rather than opera. And so I think, to me, modern classical music is not the successor to the 19th century classical artists. It's film composers. That's the way I see it. And so you just have this amazing music that's being composed, and and it doesn't have to be like symphonic. I mean, Vangelis is one of my favorite composers. Who did all of the electronic music for Blade Runner and all these other films. Amazing talent.
Ennio Morricone?
He's amazing. Great. I mean,
he's one of my favorite to put when I work.
Oh, he's one of the best.
Like, especially the ones that he did for all those, for example, the Western, the spaghetti Western, like those things, or like the real Western. Those are so good, and they get me into the zone. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So, I mean, all of that music, I mean, but it was only later, I think it was in my college days when I really started, when the music that I actually grew up with, because my brother was totally into rock and roll. Van Halen, Scorpions, all of that stuff. So I always heard it in the house. It was always there, and it was really loud, so I didn't get to play my music loud, but he got to play his Van Halen, like, super loud. And I liked it. I wasn't, like, totally into it like he was, but I heard all of that music, but it was only like later when I really started to appreciate like U2 and Duran Duran, the Police, and all the amazing music that came out of the 80s. I really started to like it even more, so that it's almost a way I discovered it in the 90s, and that I've listened to it ever since. And of course I find a lot of stuff along the way. There's a lot of cool, there's some Taylor Swift songs I like, there's some songs here and there from modern stuff that I like, but it's not the stuff I focus on. So it's not the stuff I would normally like listen to.
Great. For me, there is do you know Amon Tobin?
I don't think so.
Or actually the correct pronunciation is Amon Tobin, because he's Brazilian.
Okay.
So he's a musician. He does like industrial minimalistic techno, but it's incredibly specific. Only few people, but he's a genius, right? I went to see one of his concerts. Also, lights and music, incredible. I love him. He did one of my favorite BGMs for one of my favorite game, which was like Fool's Theory.
Yeah.
You remember that game?
Yeah, I do.
So the background music was made by him.
Oh wow! Okay.
Incredibly intense, beautiful. I love the game. I love that. I love it. And then I discovered him through that thing. So that's how. But yeah, I feel the same like you. I discovered kind of the music. It was at my time in the 80s.
Yeah.
Maybe like ages later.
Yeah, but I like to listen to different cultural music as well from different parts of the world. I mean, I love bagpipe music because I play the bagpipes.
No.
Yeah.
No, wait a second. It's 1 hour and 60 minutes. Like, now you tell me bagpipe. You should have said it before.
So just
bagpipe. Tell me the story.
The quick reason.
For that.
So because like most Americans, you go through a phase where you wonder what your heritage is, because we're a bunch of mutts in the United States. And so, my grandmother was Lithuanian, but then I discovered that most of the rest of my heritage is Scottish.
Okay.
And so, especially on my mother's side. But most of my heritage is Scottish, so I became really interested in that. I did research. I found out what our clan was, and then when I was working at Microsoft, I heard one day out in a forest somewhere there was bagpipes playing, and I went out there and I found this person who's now a friend and colleague. Who's from Scotland, who was working there in Redmond, and he would go out. He was part of a local pipe band, and he would go out and practice during lunchtime. And so I asked him, how do you learn how to play the bagpipes? I've always wanted to learn. And he's like, yeah, a lot of people have asked me that. So he got one of the pipe majors from his band to do a weekly class on the Microsoft campus. So it started out with about 10 of us, and by the time a year later, when we kind of graduated to the actual pipes, there was only 4 of us left.
Yeah.
But you're on the chanter, the practice chanter, so you learn how to do all the notes and the fingering. You do that for about a year. And then once you're ready, then you can kind of graduate to actually learning to use the bagpipe, which is a big step because you have to learn how to
You
breathe.
spend 1 year just learning that, and then you finally actually
Right.
do something.
Yes. So, and I loved it. Now, because my musical history is I played the piano. I started out on piano, then I went to clarinet, then I played bass clarinet, then I played the bassoon in high school, and then after that I didn't play anything. Until eventually I learned how to play the bagpipes, and now that's the only thing I can play.
It's incredible.
But it's fun. It's a fun instrument.
It's incredible. I think that with this, I think we have a lot of material. The beautiful thing of this interview, not interview, Pietro, stop saying interview, it's a conversation, is that there is gonna be so little editing at the end of this. It's gonna be practically ready. I need just to put like the theme song because it flew so well. It's such a beautiful story. I hope that this conversation inspired people. First of all, inspired. I would like my daughter to be to aspire to become like someone like you. You are a person I really admire. And anyone, if you're watching or listening to this, in the future you can stop her if you like cosplay, if you like reading, if you like this kind of music, if you like geography. We know a lot more about a great person, and that's actually the idea of this podcast. So I'm so happy that we did it because I think that the video game world knows something more about you.
Yeah.
What can I say? I have no more words. You want to say last few famous words, or you want to? Say
again, thank you so much for inviting me. I mean, it's fun to talk about this stuff because I have been in a lot of interviews, but it's usually about my work.
It's about your work.
It's about my culturalization work. It's about the advocacy work in the industry, things like that. But it is fun to kind of shoot the breeze about just esoteric other stuff. Music, because there's a lot of things that make up our lives.
Yes.
And it's not just our work. As much as I love my work and I'm passionate about it, that obviously is not what makes all of me.
No, exactly.
So,
and I'm also trying to combat a little bit the idea of success, is the general idea of success, what defines success, who is successful, who's not. Personally, success is the person that I have next to me, especially with the last thing about the bagpipe.
Well,
it's great. You're a successful person. You achieve things. You've done so much. You know so many things. You inspire people. That for me is success more than your actual work.
Well, to me, that's what I call successful, is being able to follow your passions in a certain and just keep on track with your passion. And I know it sounds cliche, but that's the truth. It really is the truth. I mean, everything I have done, every action I've taken, all the success that I've had is just simply because I went in a direction saying, that's interesting to me, I want to do this. Or I see a need for this, so I'm going to create this. And that's really all it's about. And I never really did it with a conscious idea like, I'm going to be successful. It's never been like that. It's just because I do it because I see a need or I see an interest and I just go. And then in hindsight, I look back and say, oh, well, we did something cool there. Something actually happened.
And that's what inspires people. So this is the time that we have for today. We are at Reboot. I also want to say, well, apart from saying thank you, that I kind of already said it, she's going to be on a European trip right? I
Yes.
think after Reboot, you go to London for a while.
London, Netherlands, Geneva. I go home to Seattle for 2 days.
Oh, you go home for 2 days.
Yeah, then I'm back in London for a week. Then I'm at Digital Dragons.
Digital Dragons.
Then
So
I'm at
we're gonna
Nordic,
meet there.
Nordic Game.
We're gonna meet there too.
Yeah, so it's I travel about 75% of the year, so it's busy.
I'm sure your family's happy about that.
Well, I'm not married anymore, and my daughter lives in California. So,
So like, okay, makes sense.
so I'm free. I can do whatever I want.
Okay. So that's beautiful. So thank you everyone. Episode 8, Kate Edwards. Sorry, I almost misspelled it. blah, 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 blah. But please, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here again, and see you next time.